According to Buddhism, compassion uproots pain and suffering. When the compassion we feel for someone is genuine, we experience the light of Dharma. So this virtue called Daya, Karuna or compassion is filled with grace, wisdom. Now I would like to call upon Dr. Karma Sonam Palmo for her deliberation on orientation to Buddhism. Dr. Karma Sonam Palmo.
Most respected distinguished officers and Honorable Vice Chancellor and Registrar Ma'am and Venerable Bhante Theruji on the dais, as well as all the visiting officers, I extend my warm greetings and would like to say Dashi Delek, which is a form of welcome in Tibetan language. So Dashi Delek to all of you and welcome to the Institute. So as it has already been mentioned that because of the summer vacation, all the faculty members are on vacation. So I have been given this task of giving a brief sort of introduction on Buddhism, which I will try my best by touching upon some salient features with 3 points. The first verse or the teaching of the Buddha that I would like to allude to is a very essential, important teaching given by the Buddha in the Dhammapada, which says, I will recite first in Tibetan again so that you can have a feel of Tibetan language. So this means, do not do anything unwholesome, do all wholesome deeds in abundance, tame your mind completely, and this is the teaching of the Buddha. So this sort of encapsulates the entire, practice and gaining knowledge according to the Buddhist philosophy. The first line, do not do anything unwholesome, shows the training in morality, which means do not do anything that is unwholesome, means any action that you would not like to, be done upon you. Do not give anyone any suffering or any action that will make them unhappy. So it's sort of, the whole morality part of the practice of Buddhism is shown in this line. And this will lead to further elaborations of Buddhist teachings on how to avoid not committing unwholesome deeds and how to cultivate wholesome actions in order to accumulate merit and further engage on the path of training to gain wisdom. The second line, do wholesome deeds in abundance. This shows the training in concentration, which is all known as the samadhi. So through this second line, what it shows is that you engage in contemplation of the teachings. You engage in concentration and meditation of the teachings that you implement upon yourself, so that ultimately you gain wisdom, which is shown by the third line, tame your mind completely. So in order to tame our mind completely, of course, we need to be enlightened with the wisdom of the teachings that the Buddha has shown. So, and this is, and the fourth line sums up the whole thing, saying this is the teaching of the Buddha. So in gist, these 4 lines shows the entire 3 trainings of Buddhism: the training in morality, the training in concentration, and the training in wisdom. This leads to the second aspect that I would like to touch upon, is the fundamental, the philosophy of Buddhism, which is known as the Pratitya Samutpada or the interdependent origination. Because the wisdom aspect of the training is entirely based on training yourself to come unto this understanding of the true nature of thing, which lies in the understanding of the interdependent nature of things. Buddhism believes that everything is interconnected. It's a web of interconnectedness, and there is nothing that is absolutely permanent or that sort of is in the form of a absolute nature. And this is, the first teaching about the Pratitya Samutpada is famously depicted in an interaction between two earlier, the sort of first two disciples of the Buddha, named ascetic Asaji and Shariputra. So Shariputra later became, one of the two prominent disciples of the Buddha. Before Shariputra became Buddha's follower, he actually met another follower of the Buddha and asked him, that ascetic, whose name was Asaji, saying, "What does your teacher teach? What is the message of your teacher?" And that of Asaji, ascetic, he said, "I'm just a beginner. I'm not able to give you the entire, I've just sort of started learning from him." And then Shariputra requested him or persuaded him, saying, "Just give me the summary, that would be enough for me." And then he went on saying, the famous line that we recite in our prayers every day. Chonam tamje jule jung, teju teje shekbe song, gejin jula gokba khaim gejung chimbuti song. So which means all phenomena that originate from causes, the Tathagata has taught these causes. And also that which puts a stop to these causes, these too has been taught by the great Shramana. So that time the Buddha was known as the great Shramana, the great ascetic. So Buddha has, the extraordinary teaching, or the very important aspect of Buddha's teaching was this revelation of this interdependent nature of the entire universe, if you would like to say, And then he has already also not just say that all these phenomena are originated through cause or causally conditioned. He has also shown us the path that can come to an end. We can put an end to all these causally conditioned phenomena, And so Buddha actually, through the teaching of the philosophy interdependent origination, has given us the path, or to understand our, how we have come into being in this samsara. Buddhism believes that we have been born in this samsara beginningless time. So there is no point where we can sort of point out the beginning. But there is, if we try, there is an end that we can put an end to this life of suffering. And then this is not just out of sort of, for this, but in order to understand how we have come about this, how diverse, what are the different, we have all sort of, are different in our situations, in our appearances, in our everyday life. So these are all causally, conditioned by our actions, which is known as karma. And so this law of causality depicted through the philosophy of Pratitya Samutpada and interdependent origination is fundamental to understanding the essence of Buddhism. So that is why, since Buddhism does not believe in anything that is there in its absolute nature, there is nothing there to be destroyed. But there is only thing that can be dispelled by the wisdom of knowing this true nature of reality in the form of interdependent origination or emptiness, another name. So interdependent origination itself is the foundation or the synonym of the teaching on emptiness. Teaching on emptiness means things are empty of inherent existence. They are absolutely not there as we sort of ignorantly believe. Things are interdependently sort of connected, and that is why we have to know this fundamental nature of things coming into being, and that's the way to embark on the Buddhist practice. So many of you you may have probably seen many different Buddhist traditions like Theravada or Mahayana or Tibetan or Chinese or whatever. Regardless of the differences of the Buddhist practitioners in their appearances, in their attire, and so on, the foundational boundary that they all unanimously abide by are the teachings or the four seals or four boundaries that is the crux of the Buddhist philosophy, and that is, all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. So as long as you are Buddhist, you have to abide by this belief that all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. There is, as soon as something is conditioned, if you believe something is unconditioned, that's a totally different story. But if you believe that everything is conditioned, then they are bound by impermanence nature. And everything that is impure is of the nature of suffering. So this means impure not in the sense of physical filthiness or anything like that, impure in the sense of destructive emotions, like Soros alluded to, the rag, dvesh, etc., the negative emotions that we experience every day in our life. So everything, whatever we do, that is sort of tainted, that is sort of contaminated by these sort of impure thoughts and negative emotions, they are absolutely in the nature of suffering. Although it may give you a sense of, not being like suffering, like maybe for a momentary sense of happiness by causing some suffering to somebody, but it's absolutely in the nature of suffering in the end. Likewise, the third line is, all phenomena are empty and lack of self. So this again takes us back to the philosophy of the interdependent nature of everything. Nothing existing on its own or inherently without depending on other things. And that is why Buddhism, another aspect of Buddhism's philosophical belief is of lack of self or anatma. That is, we don't believe in Atma that is believed in other Sanatan dharmas and all. We believe that, of course, there is a basis for the law of causality to take place, but there isn't something that a self that is it's an absolute inherent nature that can sort of be the basis of the karmic actions that we do in our life. But it's actually, we believe it's a stream of consciousness, continuity of the consciousness, that is sort of the basis of our actions and the results that we experience because of our karmic actions. And the last line is this nirvana, which means beyond suffering, or is the peace. So this means there is nothing that is permanent in this world. There is all that is impure or all that is sort of tainted by our negative emotions and actions and all are always in the nature of suffering, no matter what, regardless of its momentary pleasure that it may give you. And ultimately, everything is interconnected, and therefore there is no absolutely existential property that that's there as a basis of our karmic actions, but it's actually rather a continuity of our stream of consciousness that transmigrates from one life to the other. And ultimately, when in order to go beyond this suffering forever, beyond this suffering forever, we need to come to the understanding of this true nature of the things, the reality of things, of emptiness and interdependent origination. And that is the goal of the Buddhist Buddhist practice. And that is, whether you call it nirvana or whether you call it Buddhahood, that is the goal of the Buddhist practice. Ultimately, you break this chain of cyclic existence, which has been caused by your own negative actions and emotions. And so hence, if you go beyond all these teachings, ultimately in the Mahayana tradition especially, there's this doctrine of Buddha nature, which believes that not just human beings, all sentient beings have this potential to become Buddha. Means everybody can eventually, if they try, embark on the spiritual path that Buddha has shown by going through the three trainings of morality, concentration, and wisdom, and coming to the understanding of the reality of the things, and become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So there's a slightly difference between the Theravada and the Mahayana tradition. Theravada Buddhism is the Buddhist tradition that you see being practiced in Southeast Asian countries, and Mahayana Buddhist tradition is the tradition that you see being practiced in Tibet, in China, and then in Korea and Japan, etc. And so, because of this, a belief in the universal nature of the potential to become Buddha in all sentient beings, there is no discrimination according to Buddhist teachings. No gender discrimination, no caste discrimination, no discrimination between the species. Everybody has the equal potential to practice Buddhism, the teachings that Buddha has shown, and ultimately attain Buddhahood. So, and then if we speak more about the Mahayana, there is also this very fundamental Buddhist ideal of bodhisattva practices that is emphasized in the Mahayana Buddhist tradition. So this is, bodhisattvas are those beings who sort of engage in the path, and they decide to come back again and again in the world so that they can show and help other sentient beings and lead them to the path to ultimate enlightenment. So the difference is, we as normal human beings, we come back again and again to this world out of our own karmic actions and negative emotions, while the bodhisattvas are those who come back to this samsara knowingly. They have chose to come back to show the path of the teachings of the Buddha to the sentient beings. So these are some of the, I think I've run out of time. So these are some of the salient features that I just tried to touch upon in this brief sort of sharing my thing with you. So I thank you so much for listening, and if you have any questions, I guess you can later interact with the Honorable Vice Chancellor, who is not only a great administrator but a great philosopher. So he will be having more answers to all your questions later. Thank you.